Hi, my name is Brianna and I'm a tutor with Chegg, and today I want to talk to you guys about competition. What I'm talking about for competition is between two members of the same species. So like two dogs or two giraffes or something like that. And it can be multiple numbers, like 100 of them all competing for the same resource, or it could just be two. But it's within the same species when we're talking about competition. And the things that they'd be competing for are different resources. So things that you need to live is what competition happens for. So like safe shelter or food, water, those kind of things are easy for different species to compete over because you need them for a stable lifestyle. And not all members of species have an equal amount of resources or equal access to resources. So that's what usually leads to competition. And another competition form is like when you have a competition over mating. So like these two deer are competing over, most likely over a doe deer that they're hoping to mate with. And that competition usually always happens because they see a mate that would be perfect to reproduce with, but there's obviously competition because sometimes there's more male deer than there are female deer, and this happens in many different populations and different species because it's hard for them to find mates. And then, but if we look at a different example, so if we look at these zebra are all drinking from the same pond and they're fine because there's plenty of water. But think of a situation where there's a drought or if there's not as much water, then some of these zebra will die if they do not fight for the only portion of water that's even available to them. So competition is a huge part of, it's kind of a huge part of natural selection if you think about it, because natural selection is survival of the fittest. And if you're willing to compete for resources that you need to survive, then you're able to survive and continue and thrive and all of that for a better life. And so, like, these zebra are all happy right now because they're all getting plenty of water, but there are some situations during drought or in low water times that it just doesn't happen. But there are some species which have adapted and evolved enough so that they know that they don't have to fight with their young. And by not having to compete with their young for different resources, especially food resources, then that cuts down the amount of competition that would be available in these species. So like for butterflies and caterpillars, they eat different things. So butterflies pollinate from flowers, whereas caterpillars, which would be essentially the baby butterflies if you think about it, they eat leaves. So they're getting two different versions of food sources. And so if you think like half of a butterfly population are caterpillars and half are adult butterflies, then they're both getting plenty of resources throughout by just eating different things. And this is just called resource partitioning because it just allows different age groups to have a way to reduce the competition of food. And there are a lot of insects that have this capability because if you think about it, insects have way more offspring than like say elephants or bigger species. So it's very crucial for insects to have this ability. And yeah, that's about it for competition. Just when you're thinking about competition, just know that it is within the same species. That's what they're competing with, the same species, and if there are limited resources. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. I have a link to my dashboard right here, and I would love to help you out with any science questions. Take care. Have a good semester.